The morning sunlight slipped across the glass towers of San Diego's Navy headquarters, painting gold reflections on the waves beyond the harbor. Inside those tall, cold halls walked a man who never drew attention to himself, Michael Carter, the janitor everyone passed but rarely noticed. His gray uniform carried a name patch worn at the edges, and his quiet eyes spoke of a story that no one ever thought to ask. He began every day at 5:30 sharp, sweeping corridors where offices' boots echoed and where voices of power filled the rooms he cleaned in silence. People knew him for his gentle smile, the kind that seemed too humble for a place filled with ranks and orders. But behind that quiet smile was a life marked by loss. His wife, Emily, had passed away 3 years earlier after a long illness, leaving Michael alone to raise their daughter, Lily, who was only 6 at the time. Every evening, he would finish his shift, pick her up from the small public school near the bay, and together they'd ride the bus home, a small apartment overlooking the city lights. Lily loved the sound of helicopters that often passed over their building. She would run to the window, waving at the sky, shouting, "Daddy, look. They're flying just like you used to." Every time she said that, Michael would smile softly and whisper, "Not anymore, sweetheart." Few people knew that before he held a mop, he once held the controls of a helicopter himself. Years ago, he had been Lieutenant Michael Carter, a Navy pilot whose call sign was Hawk. He had flown rescue missions that saved dozens of lives. But after a tragic accident during a storm, one that claimed the lives of his 2 closest friends and left him injured, Michael had quietly resigned. The Navy offered him honors and a desk job, but he couldn't bear the memories. Now, sweeping floors at the same headquarters where he once wore his wings, he found comfort in small acts of kindness. He fixed a jammed vending machine so the young recruits wouldn't lose their coins. He left fresh flowers near the memorial wall every Monday. No one ever saw him do it, but everyone noticed the flowers. One afternoon, as he cleaned the command conference room, Michael heard the faint sound of laughter and footsteps approaching. He quickly stepped aside as Admiral Raymond Scott entered, a tall, commanding man known for his strict demeanor and sharp presence. Several officers followed, discussing an upcoming training operation involving new rescue pilots. Michael nodded respectfully and began gathering his cleaning supplies, hoping to slip out unnoticed. But before he could leave, a voice called, "Hey, Carter, right? You're the janitor." Michael turned. It was Commander Brooks, a younger officer known for his arrogance. "Yes, sir," Michael replied quietly. Brooks smirked. "You missed a spot under the conference table." The remark drew a few chuckles from others. Michael smiled politely, knelt, and wiped the floor again without a word. Admiral Scott, watching silently, said nothing at first. But as Michael rose and turned to leave, the Admiral's gaze lingered, a flicker of recognition in his eyes. "Carter," the Admiral said softly. "What's your first name?" "Michael, sir," he answered. The Admiral's voice dropped lower. "Michael Carter, from the 7th Rescue Wing." The room went still. Brooks stopped smiling. Everyone froze. Michael hesitated, his hand tightening around the mop handle. "Yes, sir," he finally said. "But that was a long time ago." The Admiral stared at him for a long moment. "I remember that call sign," he said quietly. "Hawk." The air in the room changed. Silence filled the space where laughter had been. That night, Michael walked home slower than usual. The streetlights shimmered across the harbor as he thought about the Admiral's words. No one had spoken his call sign in years. The name, Hawk, brought back memories of roaring engines, stormy skies, and voices on the radio calling for help. It also brought back the faces of the 2 men he'd lost, Davis and Ramirez, brothers to him in the air and in heart. When he reached the small apartment, Lily ran into his arms. "Daddy, you're late. I drew a helicopter at school today." He smiled, hugging her close. "You did. Let's see." She showed him a crayon drawing. 2 people in a helicopter with a heart above it. "That's you and Mommy," she said innocently. Michael felt a lump rise in his throat but managed to smile. "That's beautiful, sweetheart." As Lily slept later that night, Michael stepped onto the small balcony, looking out at the glowing Navy base across the bay. He whispered to the stars, "I'm still here, Davis. Ramirez. I still remember." The next morning, when he arrived at work, things felt different. People looked at him with quiet curiosity. Word had spread. The janitor wasn't just a janitor. He was a decorated pilot who had disappeared after tragedy. Admiral Scott requested to see him privately. In the Admiral's office, surrounded by medals and maps, the older man offered a chair. "You know," he said, "I was there the night of your last mission. You saved 3 crewmen before your bird went down. You were a hero, Carter." Michael looked down. "Heroes don't walk away, sir. They finish what they start." The Admiral shook his head. "Sometimes heroes keep going in different ways. You didn't walk away. You carried the pain alone." Then he leaned forward. "We're short on instructors for the new rescue training program. I want you to help. Not as a pilot, but as a mentor. Teach them what real courage looks like." Michael hesitated. "Sir, I'm just a janitor now. I don't belong here anymore." The Admiral smiled faintly. "Courage never retires, Hawk." That night, Michael couldn't sleep. He thought of the chance to do something meaningful again, something beyond the mop and bucket. But fear held him back. Fear of facing the past, fear of flying again, even if only in memory. Days passed. He continued cleaning halls, greeting everyone with the same quiet smile. But inside, something had changed. When Lily asked him to tell bedtime stories, he began to tell her about the sky, about the feeling of flying and helping others. Her eyes would light up, and she'd say, "Daddy, you should fly again one day." One rainy afternoon, as Michael was cleaning near the flight deck training area, he heard alarms blaring. A training helicopter had lost control during landing practice. The young pilot was trapped, smoke rising from the engine. Without thinking, Michael ran toward the scene. People shouted for him to stay back, but he moved faster than fear. The helicopter's door was jammed, fire threatening the cabin. He grabbed a metal rod, forced the hatch open, and pulled the pilot free just before the flames erupted. When the smoke cleared, the Admiral arrived, eyes wide. "Who opened that hatch?" someone asked. The Admiral looked at Michael, his uniform covered in soot, his hands shaking. "Hawk did," he said quietly. The rescue made local headlines. Former Navy pilot saves trainee in base fire. But Michael didn't care about the news. He only cared that the young pilot survived. Still, the event stirred something deep within him. The Admiral visited his apartment the next day. He found Lily playing on the floor and Michael mending a broken chair. "You did good, Hawk," the Admiral said. "The department wants to honor you again. There's a ceremony tomorrow." Michael shook his head. "I don't need medals." The Admiral smiled gently. "Then do it for her," he said, nodding toward Lily. The next morning, the large courtyard of Navy HQ was filled with officers, recruits, and media. Helicopters hovered above in formation. Michael stood quietly in the crowd, his janitor uniform freshly washed. When the Admiral stepped to the podium, he began, "Sometimes, greatness hides in the quietest corners. Sometimes, the man holding the broom is the same man who once held the sky in his hands." He called Michael forward. As he walked across the courtyard, people rose to their feet. The Admiral took a deep breath and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, the Navy once knew him by another name. Call sign, Hawk." The crowd gasped, cameras flashed, and for the first time in years, Michael stood tall, not as a janitor, but as a man who had faced the storms of his past and found peace in humility. A helicopter passed overhead, blades slicing the morning air. Lily waved from the front row, her small voice calling out, "That's my daddy." Tears filled Michael's eyes as he smiled. The Admiral placed a new medal in his hand, not for war, but for humanity, courage, and kindness. Months later, Michael began working as a mentor for young pilots, teaching them not just how to fly, but how to care, how to stay human even in uniform. Every evening, he still cleaned a few hallways, not because he had to, but because it reminded him of where true honor lives, in service, in humility, and in kindness. He and Lily often visited the park by the harbor, where the sunlight danced across the water and helicopters shimmered against the sky. She'd hold his hand and whisper, "Mommy would be proud, Daddy." He'd smile softly and reply, "I hope so, sweetheart. I really hope so." As the wind carried the hum of another helicopter across the bay, Michael looked up, eyes bright with tears, tears not of pain, but of gratitude. He had lost much, but kindness had given him everything back, a purpose, a family, and a peace that could never be taken away. Dear viewers, if this story touched your heart, please take a moment to share your thoughts in the comments below. Your words mean more than you know. If you believe kindness can change lives, share this video with your friends, and help spread the message. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Kindness Quest for more real and inspiring stories that remind us all, even the quietest souls can hold the loudest hearts.